was meant to last, an opportunity you were certain was your breakthrough, only to have the door slammed shut in your face. It hurts, doesn't it? It shakes you to your core. But what if I told you that what you call rejection, God calls redirection? What if the loss you mourn today is the very thing that will lead you to something greater? The problem is, most people don't see it in the moment. They think they have been abandoned when in reality they are being repositioned. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. Stay with me, because this message will shift your perspective forever. Sometimes life does not go the way we planned. We pray for doors to open, but they remain shut. We put our hope in people only for them to walk away. We build dreams around certain opportunities, but they slip through our hands like sand. And in that moment of loss, the enemy whispers, "You are not good enough. You were never meant for this. You are a failure." But the enemy is a liar. What feels like the end is often the beginning of something you cannot yet see. God does not take without the intention to give. He does not close one door without preparing another. But the question is, do you trust Him enough to walk through the unseen path? The Bible is full of stories where rejection became redirection. Think about Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit and sold into slavery. He found favor in Potiphar's house, only to be falsely accused and imprisoned, rejected over and over. But every rejection was a step closer to the throne. Had Joseph remained in his father's house, he would have never reached the palace. What his brothers meant for evil, God used for good. And that's exactly what God is doing in your life. The disappointments, the betrayals, the losses, they are not to break you, but to position you. The problem with most people is they only see the present pain and not the future glory. They are so fixated on the closed door that they don't realize God has already opened another one. They cry over lost relationships, not knowing that God was removing the wrong people to make room for the right ones. They get angry over missed opportunities, not realizing that God was protecting them from something that was never meant to bless them. If you could see what God is working on behind the scenes, you would stop crying over what left you. Moses had to leave the palace to discover his true calling. David had to be rejected by Saul before stepping into kingship. Esther had to lose her family before becoming a queen. Paul had to be struck blind before receiving true sight. Rejection is painful, but it is purposeful. If you have been rejected, let me tell you this. It is not because you are unworthy, but because God has something greater in store. Most people make the mistake of fighting for what God is trying to remove. They try to hold on to relationships that have expired. They chase after jobs that God closed the door to. They keep knocking on doors that God has locked. And then they wonder why they feel so stuck. The reason you feel frustrated is because you are trying to force what was never meant for you. When God removes something, don't chase after it. Thank Him, because what is coming is far greater than what you lost. You might feel confused right now. You might be asking God, why did you take this away? Why did you let them walk away? Why did you let me fail? But one day you will look back and thank Him. You will see that what you called loss was actually gain. That what you called heartbreak was actually deliverance. That what you thought was rejection was actually divine protection. God sees the full picture when you only see a fragment. He knows what would have destroyed you if He had let you have it. He knows the pain that would have come if He had allowed you to stay in the wrong place. The things you think you lost, you didn't lose them. You were saved from them. Every time something leaves your life, ask yourself, is God making space for something better? Because the truth is, He always is. There are people who are holding on to old seasons, crying over doors that have already closed. But when you hold on to the past, you forfeit your future. When you keep looking back, you miss what's ahead. That is why God had to remove Lot's wife from the story. She kept looking back at Sodom when God was calling her forward. And because she couldn't let go, she was turned into a pillar of salt. Some of you have become stuck because you refuse to release what God has already removed. Let me tell you this, when God redirects you, it is always for your good. He is not a man that He should lie. His plans for you are greater than you could ever imagine. But He needs you to trust Him. He needs you to let go. He needs you to move forward. So if you are in a season where doors are closing, where people are leaving, where opportunities seem to be slipping away, rejoice. Yes, rejoice. Because what is coming is far greater than what has gone. What God is preparing is beyond what you can comprehend. You may not understand it now, but in due time it will all make sense. The Bible says in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." That means your pain is not wasted. Your rejection is not meaningless. Your delays are not without purpose. Everything is working together for your good. You just have to trust the process. So, are you ready to trust God's plan? Are you ready to walk through the doors He is opening instead of crying over the ones He closed? Are you ready to let go of what was so you can embrace what is coming? Because I promise you this, when you finally step into what God has prepared, you will understand why nothing else worked out. Keep moving, keep trusting, keep believing. And remember, you weren't rejected, you were redirected. When God removes something, it is not to harm you, but to align you with His perfect will. Yet many people resist the process. They beg for what was never meant for them. They try to force what God is blocking. And when things don't work out, they begin to question His goodness. But if you truly believe that God is sovereign, then you must trust that even in rejection, He is still in control. Even in disappointment, He is still working. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize that the closed doors were actually His mercy. You will see that the rejection was a blessing in disguise. What you thought was a painful detour was actually the road to destiny. Look at Jesus. The people He came to save rejected Him. They mocked Him, betrayed Him, and ultimately crucified Him. But what looked like defeat was actually victory. The cross was not the end of His story, it was the beginning of redemption. If Jesus had to be rejected to fulfill His purpose, why do you think your path should be any different? Sometimes, rejection is the very thing that propels you into purpose. What man rejects, God anoints. What people overlook, God elevates. You may feel abandoned by people, but you are never abandoned by God. Think about David. He was the youngest, the least likely, the one even his own father didn't consider when the prophet came to anoint a king. But what others rejected, God handpicked. David was out in the fields, forgotten by man, but noticed by God, and that is how God works. He takes the ones the world calls insignificant and turns them into rulers. He takes the overlooked and makes them overcomers. The very ones who rejected you will one day watch you walk into your purpose. The very ones who doubted you will see God's favor on your life. But here's the key. You have to stop chasing after people who walked away. You have to stop mourning what didn't work out. You have to stop questioning why certain things didn't happen the way you planned. God is not the author of confusion. He is the author of order. And when He redirects you, it is always for your protection. Some of you are frustrated because you keep trying to go back to what God has already moved you past. You are trying to revive relationships that God has already called dead. You are trying to fit into places where God has already removed His hand. And then you wonder why you feel so stuck. There is nothing worse than being in a place where God's presence is no longer moving. When God told the Israelites to leave Egypt, some of them longed to go back. Even though they had been delivered from slavery, their hearts were still in bondage. And because they could not fully trust God, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. How many people today are stuck in the wilderness because they refuse to let go of Egypt? How many people are holding on to the past so tightly that they miss the promise? God is saying, let it go. What I have ahead of you is so much greater than what is behind you. The enemy wants you to believe that rejection means you are not good enough. He wants you to believe that the closed doors mean you are unworthy. But the devil is a liar. When you belong to God, rejection is never about your worth, it is about your assignment. And sometimes You have to be removed from certain places because your calling is too big for that environment. Some people cannot handle the anointing on your life. Some places are too small for the destiny God has for you. And so He allows rejection to move you forward. God will use rejection to break attachments that were never meant to last. He will use rejection to separate you from relationships that would have destroyed your future. He will use rejection to push you out of comfort zones so you don't settle for less than His best. The pain you feel now is nothing compared to the joy that is coming. If only you knew what God was preparing, you would stop questioning the process. If only you could see what He has in store, you would stop crying over what didn't work out. What you think is a setback is actually a setup. What you see as a delay is actually divine preparation. God is not just working on your circumstances, He is working on you. He is shaping your character. He is strengthening your faith. He is teaching you to trust Him, even when nothing makes sense. Because when the right door opens, you need to be ready. When the right opportunity comes, you need to be prepared. The waiting season is not a wasted season. It is the place where God refines you. It is the place where He removes what is not of Him and builds what will last. Look at the life of Abraham. God told him to leave everything familiar and go to a land He would show him. But God didn't give him all the details. He simply said, go. And Abraham obeyed. He didn't argue. He didn't ask for a backup plan. He trusted God. And because of that obedience, he became the father of many nations. Some of you are waiting for God to explain everything before you move. You are waiting for all the details before you trust Him. But faith doesn't work that way. God is asking you to trust Him even when you don't understand. To trust that the rejection you faced was His redirection. To trust that the closed doors were His way of leading you to something greater. If you are feeling discouraged, let me remind you of this. What God has for you cannot be stolen. No rejection, no betrayal, no disappointment can cancel what He has ordained. People may walk away, but God remains. Opportunities may fade, but His plan never fails. Your life is not in the hands of people. It is in the hands of the Almighty. And when God says it is time, nothing and no one can stop it. Stop wasting your energy trying to understand why certain things happened the way they did. Stop looking for explanations from people who were never meant to be part of your future. Stop questioning what has already been settled in heaven. Trust that God's plan is bigger than your pain. Trust that His redirection is leading you to something better. What is coming is greater than what is gone. The right people, the right doors, the right opportunities, they are coming, but you have to be willing to release the past to embrace the future. Some of you have been carrying the weight of rejection for too long. You have been allowing past disappointments to define your worth. You have been replaying old conversations, reliving old heartbreaks, revisiting old failures. But today, God is saying, let it go. Stop looking back. Stop holding on to what is already behind you. Stop grieving over what I have already removed. Your destiny is ahead of you, not behind you. Your purpose is waiting, but you must move forward. God has a perfect plan, but you must trust the process. You may not understand it now, but one day you will see why everything had to happen the way it did. One day you will look back and realize that every rejection, every delay, every disappointment was necessary, because without it, you would not have become who God called you to be. So today, choose to trust, choose to believe, choose to move forward, because you weren't rejected, you were redirected. And what is ahead of you is far greater than anything you left behind. Keep your faith strong, keep your eyes on God, and get ready, because He is about to do something beyond your imagination. There are seasons in life when it feels like everything is working against you. You pray, you fast, you seek God's will, yet the doors you knock on remain shut. People you trusted walk away. Opportunities you counted on disappear, and the plans you carefully laid out crumble before your eyes. It is in these moments that your faith is truly tested. Will you believe that God is still in control, even when everything seems to be falling apart? Will you trust that His ways are higher than yours, even when they don't make sense? This is where many people give up. They become bitter. They stop praying. They stop believing. But what if the very thing that hurt you was the thing God was using to heal you? What if the rejection you faced was His way of leading you to something far greater? When Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit and sold into slavery, it must have felt like his dreams were over. The visions God had given him of leadership and greatness seemed impossible in that moment. But what Joseph didn't know was that every painful step was part of the journey to his destiny. If his brothers had never rejected him, he would have never ended up in Egypt. If he had never been falsely accused and imprisoned, he would have never met the people who would later introduce him to Pharaoh. And if he had never stood before Pharaoh, he would have never risen to the position that God had prepared for him. What looked like a series of tragedies was actually a divine setup. God was orchestrating everything behind the scenes. That is how God works. He sees the full picture when all you see is a broken piece. He knows the end from the beginning. He knows the people who are meant to be part of your journey and those who are only temporary. He knows which places will help you grow and which ones will hinder you, and sometimes He has to allow rejection to move you. Because if He didn't, you would settle for less than what He has for you. Many people miss their destiny because they refuse to let go of what God has already removed. They keep trying to force relationships that are no longer aligned with their purpose. They keep knocking on doors that God has already closed. They keep trying to make things work in their own strength instead of surrendering to His will. But what they don't realize is that holding on to the past is preventing them from stepping into the future. God never takes something away without a purpose. If He allowed a door to close, it's because He has a better one waiting for you. If He allowed someone to walk away, it's because they were never meant to be part of your next season. But if you keep mourning what is gone, you will miss what He is trying to do now. You will miss the new opportunities. You will miss the new relationships. You will miss the fresh anointing He wants to pour into your life. When God removes something, He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. The problem is we often see rejection as a sign that we are unworthy, that we are not good enough, that we have failed. But in reality, rejection is often God's protection. He sees what you cannot see. He knows the hidden dangers, the unseen traps, the future consequences. And because He loves you, He redirects you, even if it means allowing you to feel the sting of rejection for a moment. Look at the story of Ruth. She faced immense loss. Her husband died, and she had every reason to return to her homeland, to go back to what was familiar. But something in her spirit told her that her future was not behind her. She chose to follow Naomi, even when it made no sense. She chose to walk away from the past and step into the unknown. And because of that decision, she ended up in the field of Boaz. She ended up in the lineage of Jesus Christ. What if she had stayed in her comfort zone? What if she had let her past define her? She would have missed her destiny. That is the danger of holding on to what God is trying to move you from. You may think you are staying in a safe place, but in reality, you are staying in a place that will keep you stuck. Some of you are in relationships that God has already told you to leave. You are in jobs that no longer align with your calling. You are in environments that are draining your spirit. And God is saying, it's time to move. But fear is holding you back. Fear of the unknown, fear of what people will say, fear of failure. But God has not given you a spirit of fear. He has given you power, love, and a sound mind. And if He is calling you to let go, it's because He has something far greater ahead. One of the greatest traps the enemy uses is convincing you that what you lost was the best you could ever have. He whispers lies that make you believe you will never find better, that you will never recover, that your best days are behind you. But the devil is a liar. Your best days are not behind you. They are ahead of you. What you lost was not the best. What God is preparing is the best. But you have to stop looking back in order to receive it. The children of Israel struggled with this. God had delivered them from Egypt, from slavery, from bondage, yet when things became difficult, they wanted to go back. They had prayed for freedom, but when it required faith, they longed for the very place that had kept them in chains. How many times do we do the same thing? We ask God for a breakthrough, but when it doesn't come the way we expected, we try to go back to what is familiar. We ask God for His perfect will, but when it requires waiting, we try to force our own plans. But God's promises require patience. His perfect plan unfolds in His perfect time. If you are in a season where doors are closing, where relationships are shifting, where things are not making sense, do not panic. Do not doubt. Do not try to force what is not meant for you. Stand still and know that He is God. Trust that He is working even when you cannot see it. Trust that His redirection is leading you to something better. You may not understand it now, but one day you will. One day you will look back and realize that everything had to happen exactly the way it did. God is not finished with you. He is still writing your story. He is still leading you to the place He has prepared for you, but you must be willing to follow Him even when the path is unclear. You must be willing to let go of what is comfortable in order to step into what is promised. You must be willing to trust that every rejection, every closed door, every disappointment is not the end. It is only the beginning of something greater. Your destiny is too important to be tied to people who do not value you. Your calling is too great to be limited by places that no longer serve your purpose. Stop crying over what God has already removed. Stop fighting for things that are not meant to be. Stop doubting His plan because of temporary setbacks. What is coming is greater. The favor that is ahead is greater. The opportunities, the breakthroughs, the divine connections, they are all coming. But you must align yourself with His will. You must surrender your plans for His. You must trust that He knows what is best for you. This is not the end of your story. This is not the final chapter. You are walking into a new season. A season of restoration, a season of acceleration, a season of open doors. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. And what is ahead is far greater than anything you could have imagined. So keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting, because God's plan for you is still unfolding and the best is yet to come. What often seems like a setback is actually a setup for something greater. But the problem is, we don't see it that way in the moment. We feel the pain, the disappointment, the frustration, and we assume that God has forgotten about us. We assume that the rejection means we are unworthy, that the loss means we are being punished, that the delay means God is ignoring our prayers. But faith is not about understanding every step of the journey. It's about trusting the one who is leading us. And when God allows something to be removed from your life, He is making room for something better. Think about David. He was anointed to be king at a young age, but he didn't step into that calling immediately. Instead, he was rejected by his own family. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint a king from Jesse's sons, David wasn't even invited to the gathering. His own father didn't consider him worthy enough to be in the room. And yet, God chose him. Even when men overlooked him, God had already set him apart. But the rejection didn't stop there. After David defeated Goliath, he became a hero, but then King Saul turned against him. He was hunted, forced to live in caves, and had to fight battles he never asked for. It would have been easy for David to wonder why God allowed all of this to happen. If he was chosen, why was he suffering? If he was anointed, why was he being rejected? But what David didn't realize at the time was that every battle, every hardship, every moment of rejection was preparing him to rule. He wasn't just going to be a king, he was going to be a king after God's own heart. And that kind of preparation requires seasons of testing. You may be in a season where you feel like David. You feel forgotten, rejected, and overlooked. You feel like you are doing everything right, yet nothing seems to be working in your favor. You feel like you are waiting, and the promise still hasn't come to pass. But hear me, just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean God is not working. Just because the doors haven't opened yet doesn't mean they won't. Just because people have walked away doesn't mean you are alone. God is still in control, and He is still working things out for your good. Many people fail to step into their destiny because they allow the rejection to define them. They stop believing in what God said. They let fear and doubt take over. They let the opinions of others determine their worth. But you cannot allow temporary pain to make you doubt an eternal promise. If God said it, He will do it. If He called you, He will equip you. If He started something in you, He will complete it. But you have to be willing to walk by faith and not by sight. You have to be willing to let go of what was in order to step into what will be. There are some things God will not explain to you right away. There are some doors He will close without giving you an answer. There are some people He will remove without telling you why. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can either trust Him or question Him. You can either hold on to your faith or give in to frustration. You can either believe that He is leading you somewhere greater or assume that He has abandoned you. But let me remind you, God does not abandon His children. He does not forget His promises. He does not lead you to a place and then leave you there. If He has allowed something to happen, it is because He sees what you do not see. He knows what is coming. He knows what is best for you. And even when it hurts, even when it doesn't make sense, you have to trust that His plan is perfect. Sometimes the very thing you are holding on to is the thing that is holding you back. Sometimes the door you keep trying to open is the one that God has locked for your protection. Sometimes the people you keep chasing are the ones who were never meant to go with you into your next season. And as long as you keep looking back, you will never move forward. As long as you keep dwelling on what was, you will never embrace what is coming. God is asking you today, will you trust me even when you don't understand? Will you believe that I have something better for you? Will you let go of what you thought was best so I can give you what is truly best? That is the test of faith. That is what it means to walk with God. It means surrendering your plans for His. It means letting go of your own understanding and trusting His wisdom. It means believing that He is good even when life doesn't feel good. Some of the greatest breakthroughs come after seasons of rejection. Some of the biggest blessings come after doors have been shut. Some of the most powerful testimonies come from moments when you thought all hope was lost. Because it is in those moments that God shows up. It is in those moments that His power is revealed. It is in those moments that He takes what was meant for evil and turns it for good. Look at Jesus. He was rejected by His own people. He was betrayed by one of His own disciples. He was falsely accused, beaten, mocked, and crucified. If anyone understood rejection, it was Jesus. And yet, through His suffering, salvation came. Through His pain, redemption was made available to the world. Through His rejection, He fulfilled the greatest purpose of all time. So, if you are facing rejection, take heart. If people have turned against you, do not be discouraged. If doors have closed, do not lose hope. Because what the enemy meant for harm, God is turning for your good. What looked like a loss is actually a setup for something greater. What seemed like a failure is actually part of God's divine plan. But you have to trust Him. You have to keep moving forward. You have to believe that He is still in control. Because the moment you stop believing is the moment you stop receiving. The moment you stop trusting is the moment you stop growing. The moment you stop walking by faith is the moment you stop stepping into your destiny. Do not settle for less than what God has for you. Do not accept mediocrity when He has called you to greatness. Do not give up just because the journey is hard. The rejection you have faced is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. It is the preparation for something greater. It is the setup for a testimony that will glorify God. Your future is greater than your past. Your destiny is greater than your history. What is coming is greater than what has been. But you have to believe it. You have to walk in faith. You have to trust that even when you don't understand, God is still working. Even when you don't see the way, He is still leading. Even when it feels like everything is falling apart, He is still holding you together. You were not rejected, you were redirected. And one day you will look back and thank God that things didn't work out the way you wanted them to. You will thank Him for every closed door. You will thank Him for every person who walked away. You will thank Him for every disappointment. Because without them, you would have never stepped into the greater things He had prepared for you. So lift your head, strengthen your faith, keep moving forward. Because what God has for you is still ahead. And no rejection, no setback, no delay can stop what He has already planned. The best is yet to come. Everything you have been through was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to prepare you. The rejection, the closed doors, the disappointments, the painful moments, none of it was wasted. God allowed it because He was shifting you into something greater. You may not have understood it at the time, but one day you will look back and see His hand in every situation. You will see how He was protecting you, how He was guiding you, how He was leading you to something better. Rejection is not a sign of failure. It is often a sign of divine intervention. God removes people and opportunities that are not aligned with your destiny. What you thought was a loss was actually your greatest gain. What you thought was a delay was actually perfect timing. What you thought was a closed door was actually God's way of redirecting you to something far greater than you could have imagined. So do not let the pain of the past hold you back from stepping into your future. Do not let disappointment make you lose faith in God's plan. Trust that He knows what He is doing, even when you do not understand. Walk boldly into the next season of your life, knowing that God is ordering your steps. The best is still ahead of you. The things you lost were never meant to stay. The people who left were never meant to walk with you forever. The doors that closed were never the doors that would lead you to your destiny. What God has for you is greater, stronger, and more powerful than anything you have lost. Keep trusting, keep believing, and keep moving forward, because your greatest blessing is still on the way.